I'm noticing a new big wave of people are getting just now into analog. Most likely it's the new generation of aspiring mix engineers that after a few years of experimenting and trying to mix completely in the box, they understand they want something more. Hence, one of the most common questions that I get still is, David, what compressor should I buy for my 2-bus? Well, we have a few here, so let's give them a try, compare to each other, and you pick. All right, let's start this video with a cool power-up. Flock audio patch is on. Let's turn on our converter. Compressors that we are gonna test today for 2-bus. We start with the coolest power-up of all, Wes Audio NG bus. Bam. Then we are going to try the FATSO. I'm not sure which one I will patch, this one or that one, they are the same anyway. Then we have the Wes Audio Rhea and the Wes Audio Dione. Now the Dione and the NG bus are both SSL style VCA compressors. Of course, this is the big brother and has many more functions, like for example, the transformers, additional, the fully variable THD here. It can be mid-side or dual mono. This one can't. But at the core, they are the same topology of compressor. So I'm not sure I'm gonna try them both. We'll see how long the video ends up being. Then we have the Heritage Audio Successor, arguably the more colored of the bunch. I would have also the Expressor, but I momentarily took that out of the 500 series rack because I just got the SSL EQs that I need for a couple of albums that I'm mixing in the next weeks, so that is missing today. But these will give you a good idea because we have a Vari-Mu, we have one, if not two, VCA SSL style. We have the FATSO, which is a very unique type of compressor with the tape emulation and all. And then we have a diode bridge compressor, extremely colored, although not as versatile as the others. Let's start. For most of them, we can have very similar settings, but matching the settings would not make any sense because, for example, 4:1 ratio on the Successor is incredibly more grabby and aggressive than 4:1 on, for example, the NG bus. Also, the Vari-Mu doesn't have a ratio. The FATSO has a 2-bus setting and that's it. So for this test, we're gonna take different genres, hip hop, rock, electronic, and so on. And I'm gonna set the compressors, and I'm gonna set the compressor how I would set for each one to sound the best on that given song. And then I'm gonna push the compression and exaggerate the settings so you can hear the difference better through YouTube, and also the fact that I'm recording this at 44.1 and not a 96 or 88 as I would when I mix with analog. Let's get going.
The rest, you showing up when I'm showing up that meat like Ed Gein, I'm that mean. That beats, I beat the debt with the dead cheap cold feet, like cop killers, me and police. An MC, rockin' tree, MMC, 365 days. My mind sideways, my third eye rocks a triangle. I work a mad angle. My muscles are optimal. Rock a few, if you spot this dynamic dude, fuck a crew. Me and Pete will fucking do. Belgium overall, the temple of ball, never break, never fall, in for the long haul. Kings of chaos, titans of terror, say my name 5 times in the mirror, and I appear. You get shook with the right hook, bend over, game over. Peacock and Masterson, ha, feel the rush of adrenaline. Yeah, pull back again, pump the right medicine, pick up the veterans. Peacock and Masterson, ha, feel the rush of adrenaline. Yeah, pull back again, pump the rest. You showing up when I'm showing up that meat like Ed Gein, I'm that mean. That beats, I beat the debt with the dead cheap cold feet, like cop killers, me and police. An MC, rockin' tree, MMC, 365 days. My mind sideways, my third eye rocks a triangle. I work a mad angle. My muscles are optimal. Rock a few, if you spot this dynamic dude, fuck a crew. Me and Pete will fucking do. Belgium overall, the temple of ball, never break, never fall, in for the long haul. Kings of chaos, titans of terror, say my name 5 times in the mirror, and I appear. You get shook with the right hook, bend over, game over. Peacock and Masterson, ha, feel the rush of adrenaline. Yeah, pull back again, pump the right medicine. when I'm showing up that meat like Ed Gein, I'm that mean. That beats, I beat the dead with the dead sheep, cold feet like cop killers, me and police. An MC, rockin' tree, MMC, 365 days. My mind sideways, my third eye rocks a triangle. I work a mad angle. My muscles are optimal. Rock a few, if you spot this dynamic dude, fuck a crew. Me and Pete will fucking do. Belgium overall, the temple of ball, never break, never fall, in for the long haul. Kings of chaos, titans of terror. Say my name 5 times in the mirror, and I appear. You get shook with the right hook. Bend over, game over. Peacock and assassin. Ha! Feel the rush of adrenaline. Yeah! Pull back again. Pump the right medicine. Pick up the veterans. Peacock and assassin. Ha! Feel the rush of adrenaline. Yeah! The rest, you showing up when I'm showing up that meat like Ed Gein, I'm that mean. That beats, I beat the dead with the dead sheep, cold feet like cop killers, me and police. An MC, rockin' tree, MMC, 365 days. My mind sideways, my third eye rocks a triangle. I work a mad angle. My muscles are optimal. Rock a few, if you spot this dynamic dude, fuck a crew. Me and Pete will fucking do. Belgium overall, the temple of ball, never break, never fall, in for the long haul. Kings of chaos, titans of terror. Say my name 5 times in the mirror, and I appear. You get shook with the right hook. Bend over, game over. Peacock and assassin. Ha! Feel the rush of adrenaline. Yeah! Pull back again. Ask me why some bird to follow. What's the meaning of the time you're wasting? You better say that. What's the reason why you look so frightening? We're here to say that. So we don't know how to
Before continuing, if you like this video, please consider using the super thank, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a like. If you really want to learn how to mix and master professionally, click the join button down here, become a MixBus TV member, access the already big and always growing library of full mixing courses start to finish, mastering courses on many different genres and a lot more. And keep an eye out for the next live mixing class. Those are one-offs and tickets are limited. Let's get back to the video.
Well, as them sell it by the gun, dead by the gun. And so by it, him wanna brain get pop and spill. Now him gone, can't see him again. Sad song I sing for him again. No advice, mama can't give him again. I know me not go see my friend, because him gone, can't see him again. Another retaliate for him again, but pastor can't pray for him again. Another sad story, it's him again. And then make me tell you about my virgin, just sentinel. Used to chant and sing till the man get sent to hell. But some never wish just sent he well, cause them know him was a sent to rebel. Yo, me and him was in the same class in a high school. No few to the music, he and high school. Even in the early days, him stand up as a rasta. The fire in him, them coulda never try cool. Him used to have vision and dream. Big concert in a stadium for the whole world see him. But no studio him go them turn him down. But him never lose him self-esteem. Me never have much, but the little when me have that me did the game. So me said to him just sent it. Come in on me yard, come make we build the tracks plenty. Well, as them sell it by the gun, dead by the gun. And so by it him wanna brain get pop and spill. Now him gone, can't see him again. Sad song I sing for him again. No advice, mama can't give him again. I know me not go see my friend, because him gone, can't see him again. Another retaliate for him again, but pastor can't pray for him again. Another sad story, it's him again. And then make me tell you about my virgin, just sentinel. Used to chant and sing till the man get sent to hell. Well, as them sell it by the gun, dead by the gun. And so by it, him wanna brain get pop and spill. Now him gone, can't see him again. Sad song I sing for him again. No advice, mama can't give him again. I know me not go see my friend, because him gone, can't see him again. Another retaliate for him again, but pastor can't pray for him again. Another sad story, it's him again. And then make me tell you about my virgin, just sentinel. Used to chant and sing till the man get sent to hell. But some never wish just sent he well, cause them know him was a sent to rebel. Yo, me and him was in the same class in a high school. No few to the music, he and high school. Even in the early days, him stand up as a rasta. The fire in him, them coulda never try cool. Him well, as them sell it by the gun, dead by the gun. And so by it, him wanna brain get pop and spill. Now him gone, can't see him again. Sad song I sing for him again. No advice, mama can't give him again. I know me not go see my friend, because him gone, can't see him again. Another retaliate for him again, but pastor can't pray for him again. Another sad story, it's him again. And then make me tell you about my virgin, just sentinel. Used to chant and sing till the man get sent to hell. But some never wish just sent he well, cause them know him was a sent to rebel. Yo, me and him was in the same class in a high school. No few to the music, he and high school. Even in the early days, him stand up as a rasta. The fire in him, them coulda never try cool. Him used to have vision and dream. Big concert in a stadium for the whole world see him. But no studio him go them turn him down, but him never lose him self-esteem. Me never have much, but the little when me have that me did the game. So me said to him just sent it. Come in on me yard, come make we build the tracks plenty. Yo, the man full up of creativity, him never empty. But him never get the help what him really need. And to the point him
ain't no sunshine on this side of town. You could get lost and never be found. Fuck it, I'ma ride out till my fucking time's out. So I gotta sainted. Should've been out by now, running out of patience, losing my mind now. Feel like I gotta watch my back, I'm in danger. Used to be homie, some changed up, hard working, now to say look, just caked up. I made up my mind, I gotta get the bag. Shorty, I am not the one, so don't you get attached. And where I am from, it's like we never had. So if I gotta split, then I get the better half. And I just paint the picture, and I ain't never rap. Got my mind on my money, money on my mind, and these streets kinda funny. So I hang on to that line, and my wrist looking lovely, but girl, you can't get my time, because time equal money is too easy to decide. I'm hungrier than ever, you could see it in my eye. Ain't no sunshine on this side of town. You could get lost and never be found. Fuck it, I'ma ride out till my fucking time's out, so I gotta make it. It's do or die now, and my soul is tainted. Should've been out by now, running out of patience, losing my mind now. Feel like I gotta watch my back, I'm in danger. Used to be homie, some changed up, hard working, now to say look, just caked up. I made up my mind, I gotta get the bag. Shorty, I am not the one, so don't you get attached. And where I am from, it's like we never had. So if I gotta split, then I get the better half. And I just paint the picture, and I ain't never rap. Got my mind on my money, money on my mind, and these ain't no sunshine on this side of town. You could get lost and never be found. Fuck it, I'ma ride out till my fucking time's out, so I gotta make it. It's do or die now, and my soul is tainted. Should've been out by now, running out of patience, losing my mind now. Feel like I gotta watch my back, I'm in danger. Used to be homie, some changed up, hard working, now to say look, just caked up. I made up my mind, I gotta get the bag. Shorty, I am not the one, so don't you get attached. And where I am from, it's like we never had. So if I gotta split, then I get the better half. And I just paint the picture, and I ain't never rap. Got my mind on my money, money on my mind, and these streets kinda funny. So I hang on to that line, and my wrist looking lovely, but girl, you can't get my time, because time equal money is too easy to decide. I'm hungrier than ever, you could see it in my eyes. I'm hotter than the weather when it's beaming in July, but this shit make it better, bitch, I'm freezing in Dubai. I'm all about my cheddar, but no rats in my circle. Try to see the good, but the good got it worse. Ain't no sunshine on this side of town. You could get lost. Ain't no sunshine on this side of town. You could get lost and never be found. Fuck it, I'ma ride out till my fucking time's out, so I gotta make it. It's do or die now, and my soul is tainted. Should've been out by now, running out of patience, losing my mind now. Feel like I gotta watch my back, I'm in danger. Used to be homie, some changed up, hard working, now to say look, just caked up. I made up my mind, I gotta get the bag. Shorty, I am not the one, so don't you get attached. And where I am from, it's like we never had. So if I gotta split, then I get the better half. And I just paint the picture, and I ain't never rap. Got my mind on my money, money on my mind, and these streets kinda funny. So I hang on to that line, and my wrist looking lovely, but girl, you can't get my time, because time equal money is too easy to decide. I'm hungrier than ever, you could see it in my eyes. I'm hotter than the weather when it's beaming in July, but this shit make it better, bitch, I'm freezing in Dubai. I'm all about my cheddar, but no rats in my circle. Try to see the good, but the good got it worse. Ain't no sunshine on this side of town. You could get lost and never be found.
Mother, you gave me the stars. Father, the earth. Children look with questioning eyes. What was
That's it. This was kind of easy, right? If you like this video, guys, please don't forget to leave a like. And if you feel like, use the super thanks and support the channel. So these compressors, of course, I know them beyond well. So I'm more interested in what you guys think, what you heard. So write in the comments down below, which one was your favorite or favorites for which song, and most important, why. Here are some pointers for those people who still don't know how to listen to compression and really understand the differences between different topologies, different models, different compressors. So you can listen to this and then maybe go back and re-listen to each example with a better knowledge, with a better understanding of what to listen for, okay? Let's start, for example, with the NG bus. The NG is the most punchy of all, even though I didn't push it too much. It's got that classic SSL glue that brings all the things more close to each other, more compact, and yet still sound big and open. Not as open as the, for example, Rhea, the Varimu. But if you hear the low end, the way the NG bus handles the low end versus the Rhea are completely different. That's why some of the songs that I used were really bass heavy, so you can hear that very important difference. The Varimu, the Rhea, has one of the most beautiful top end for a compressor. So open, it doesn't even sound like you're compressing. In fact, for the most part, compressors tend to kind of dull a little bit the top end, okay? For example, the NG is not particularly colored. Actually, if you run no THD and no transformers, it can be a pretty clean and transparent compressor, well suited for mastering, having 1.5 ratio, having extensive sidechain filters, and on top of that, the option of the color. But if you hear the differences on the top end, the NG compared to the Rhea sounds like a little muffle at the top end. It's not. In fact, is that the Rhea, being a tube compressor and using tubes for the compression, it adds a little bit of top end. While, for example, the Successor, the Heritage, definitely shaves off the top end. So here, pay attention to these differences. We can say the NG is kind of neutral, right? While the Varimu, the Rhea, adds that super beautiful top end sparkle. And then the Successor is the darkest and the greediest of all, and also the more grabby of all. If you heard when I even tried to go on the tubas at 3.1, it's just way too much, way too nervous, way too grabby, okay? It's a vintage style compressor, so it's normal. It's the design is a diode bridge compressor, but it's not a compressor on the tubas that you would use on anything. It's pretty peculiar. Most times it won't be your first choice, but when you need and want that sound, that thick, creamy, heavy color, then that's the ticket and nothing can touch it. Between being a diode bridge plus the 1073 style output, half of the color is in the makeup gain. That's why you saw me exaggerating compression for a 2-bus, even hitting 6 dB, because I wanted to use the output to compensate and let you hear that really half of the color comes from that. Very, very particular compressor for the attack and release. You don't really have many choices because really, really fast attacks and release, as you heard, they tend to, the super fast release tend to stutter, especially with big low ends, and the too fast of an attack on a 2-bus is a big no with this compressor. So you basically only have two choices: 20, which is 99% what you're gonna use on 2-bus, or 5 if you're really doing like 1 to 2 dB of compression. On a class of its own is instead the FATSO. The FATSO is so different from all of them, and yet it has characteristics of all of them. With the tape saturation, which is always engaged, you saw the little yellow 0V light, okay? Which you can even go in the red and have even more saturation. But for 2-bus, I would stay there. It's kind of hard to describe because it has the action of the compression, the bus settings has a slow attack and a average fast-ish release, which is brilliant because it literally works on everything. What you have to set at that point is the amount of input and output, and in my case I have the ELFTC up there, so in my case I have even more control than a normal FATSO, which usually would have the input, which control the amount of saturation linked to a fixed threshold. With that, I can back off the threshold and get less compression but more distortion, or the other way around. I didn't touch in this case, so not to complicate things, the ELFTC, I left it there. The FATSO is great because you immediately feel this more richness, pretty much across the spectrum, but more concentrated in the mid-range and the low mid-range and the low end. And similar to the NG bus, it brings things together, but while the NG bus does it in a fairly transparent way compared to the FATSO has this kind of obvious color, which is beautiful though. It's not as gritty and as vintage as the Successor, is more modern, still up front, yet if you compress too much with that, you are gonna end up with a duller mix than you had before, which is great in some cases if you had really harsh material. I ran the warmed in a couple of occasions in a couple of tracks to show you how that works. That is a godsend when you have any source that is like really, really harsh and not just a mix. I use that on vocals, is magic. Some samples that were like extremely hard and harsh, that fixes it literally with just engaging the warm circuit, which works kind of a de-esser, but not really. And then you have the transformer. You're probably gonna have to go back and listen very carefully, and of course you're gonna have to have a system where you can really hear the low end, because we had some tracks that had a really extended low end, and you're not gonna hear it otherwise. When you engage the tranny, the transformers on the FATSO, the top end gets that little sparkle. So kind of similar to the Rhea, although the Rhea really sounds like magic fairy dust. The FATSO is a little more edgy, but still extremely euphonic. At the same time, you hear a slight soft roll-off from 50 and below. So you engage the FATSO with the compression and saturation, you hear richness, things gluing together, big low end and very rich low mid range. And then you click next to the tranny, you hear the low end slimming down just a little bit, and then the top end opening up. And all of them are absolutely great compressors. Again, the Dione is very, very similar to the NG. It doesn't have, for example, the transformer option, which you heard on the NG. I didn't talk about it. It's just sound absolutely huge. The low end becomes like so big, so much that in mixing, you can't really just hit it halfway or 70% of the mix, because it's gonna change your entire low end. But for example, in mastering, sometimes it's a godsend. When you have like skimpy, skinny mixes, that transformer alone with the pad, and you can drive it as much as you want, it just sounds so big. In mixing, you're probably gonna have to figure out if you wanna mix with that transformer in from the get-go, at least at the very beginning of the mix. Otherwise, it's gonna be difficult to insert it after, because it changes like night and day. But still, it's an amazing option to have, and for me, it saved several masters from mixes that I received to master. They were like a really poor low end. It's not just EQ, it's just this richness that it has with this giant transformer in the low end. If you push it too much, that iron transformer on the NG, you start losing clarity and things sound too foggy, so you have to really pay attention. But the beauty of that compressor is you can literally go a cent of a dB at the time and then recall it, so that's just amazing. But yeah, the Dione it sounds less big than the NG, has less options, but at the core, if you leave the settings, let's say no color, just stereo, and you watch your gain staging, they are fairly similar. And another one that is not here, because like I said, I just pulled it out of the rack, and because I put the SSL EQ in, would have been the Elysia Expressor, which is sitting right there right now, and I have to decide, I'll probably have to get another 500 series rack. That is also a VCA compressor. On paper is a very transparent compressor. I found though that on the 2-bus, it kinda affect the top end a little too much, even lower settings, which by the way, it's a must with that compressor on the 2-bus, because I don't even think I can go up to ratio 2.1. That compressor is so freaking grabby. Don't get me wrong, it's amazing. I love the Expressor. In fact, I sold it and I bought it after a few months because I missed it. But on the 2-bus, it's very grabby, so your ratio is gonna be between 1.2 to 1 up to 1.8. And it's great because it's so tweakable. The sidechain, the auto log for the release, the auto fast for the attack, it allows you to really fine tune the compressor. Unfortunately, the action of the compressor and the tone of the box, even without the color option, which is nice by the way. The color option is nice, it adds some balls to the material. But the way how it affects the top end is very grabby. And so if you have something that is particularly harsh, or it's got too much energy, or is too extended in the top end, that is definitely something that it will help you. But it's definitely a compressor that you want to hit less than you think. And at the same time, you don't have dual mono, you don't have mid-side, but it's still a great little compressor. And I think this is it for this video. I hope you guys liked it, and if you did, please don't forget to leave a like. In the next few weeks, I'm receiving a handful of new piece of hardware. Many of them are compressors, so maybe we'll do this again with the new gear when it comes in. In the meantime, leave your comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already. Notification bell helps the channel. Stay safe. See you next time.
Hands on my neck, hands grip my throat. Lift me up.